Welcome to Lifestyle Solopreneur, the community for entrepreneurs who put lifestyle first. Join your host Flavia Barris as she interviews successful lifestyle solopreneurs and shares ideas to help you find the perfect balance between lifestyle, business, and self. Flavia is an attorney, marketing expert, and founder of several online academies. She's been featured in major media including BBC World News, The Wall Street Journal, The New York Post, ESPN Television, and more. Join us for this episode of Lifestyle Solopreneur.
Hey, Lifestyle Solopreneurs. Today we get to chat with Christine DiDonato. She is the founder of Career Revolution, Inc. She's an innovator in the space of modern career development. She is one of LinkedIn Learning's top course creators with over 1 million participants to date and is the author of Get There Faster, the no-nonsense, no-fluff guide to the career that you want. Welcome to the show, Christine.
Thanks, Flavia. It's exciting to be here.
It's always great chatting with someone that is so well-rounded. I mean, you're an author, you're a course creator. Tell us a little bit about both of those aspects of your day-to-day work.
Yeah, they are, I guess you could say they're passions of mine. I never knew what I'd be writing about or talking about, but my career was always doing this in some form or fashion now that I look back. So now I have an opportunity to come up with original material. And my focus right now is career development and helping individuals navigate what is just a chaotic, unpredictable, ambiguous workplace or workforce that we're in right now. So I create courseware to help individuals own their career, as well as have a book and workbook to help individuals do the same.
And what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people make in their career strategy?
Let's see, there's several right now that I see happening, I think in this sort of, I don't even want to say post-COVID world because we're still in it, but I think a lot of people are still putting pressure on themselves to define this singular purpose or singular passion, that what's your purpose? And I see a lot of people getting frustrated or feeling like they're not able to answer that question with something like one title or one kind of job or one field, which is preventing them, I think, from being able to figure out more of their curiosity. So I just think there's a lot of pressure people are putting on themselves to have some kind of answer to that big question when one answer may not be possible for a lot of people.
That makes sense, especially like you said, you call it post-COVID. I'm almost calling it like post-apocalyptic. I mean, it was like, It was this crazy time when people were, fighting over the last roll of toilet paper and employers everywhere. I mean, I think not just on the employee side, but do you think employers are also strategizing right now on what they're going to offer employees as far as telecommuting, work-life balance considerations, and how that looks today after everything we went through in the last year and a half?
Oh, absolutely. Good question. Absolutely. I work with a lot of corporations. So I've been listening to the internal dialogue from, pre-COVID and then where we are now. There's definitely a movement in organizations to try to figure out where to put budget. And in the past, a lot of organizations would put a lot of their employee development budget into, leadership development, and they would focus on that top 10% of their organization or sales training in particular. And what I saw happen during 2020 was a shift into things around wellness, health and wellness, of course, more of the diversity and inclusion. I think there's been bigger investments finally into that. And then I'm seeing a lot more investment into the individual from a personal development standpoint. And of course, the work from home. I do think the jury's still out on the work from home piece. I think it's inevitable that a lot of organizations have accepted that they may not go back 100% to the way things were, but there's still a lot of companies out there who are still planning on bringing everybody back. And I think it's caused a real big challenge right now because, gosh, so many people moved, right? They got out of expensive cities. They tried to move into areas where they had more space that would accommodate people being home. So I think the jury's still out on how that's going to play out.
I did see one article just on one sector, right? And this one was law firms, where the article said the law firms that don't sort of incorporate more telecommuting and work from home options into their workflow and what they offer employees might actually see kind of an exodus. Like it may be harder to recruit and they may actually lose some headcount to other firms, and people will kind of parallel hop over to places that are a little more open to letting people either work from home a few days a week or maybe telecommute certain. It doesn't necessarily have to be 100%. I mean, there's a lot of people that are arguing, hey, I did my job 100% from home for 4 or 5 months. Why not just do that forever? And then there's a lot of employers that are thinking, well, we really kind of need to see your face once in a while. You know, we still want to have that human interaction in person. And so we just can't do that indefinitely. But do you think that a lot of companies that right now aren't thinking to do that or make big changes will be forced to within the next year or two?
Yeah, it's interesting. When I talk to the clients I have, they survey their employees. They surveyed, many of them ran surveys at the end of last year or the beginning of this one. And they're seeing a difference in needs and wants by age. So the employees they have that are further along in their career, a little bit older, midlife, later stages of career, are actually looking forward to going back. Now, that's not 100% true, but a big majority, because they're home with a lot of kids, right? They actually want to come in. They're more productive when they're not in their home. The younger employees, however, in mass numbers are telling their organizations they want the flexibility. They want to be able to work from where they work. I think they see themselves as more on the entrepreneurial side, right, where they're more free agent than I think employees who've been in the workforce a lot longer. So I do think that, the bigger brands are looking at this data very seriously and trying to think of how to manage this. So I do think we're going to see companies forced to be more flexible in the future, but I think it really just depends on the job market. Right now, there's lots of jobs open. People have a lot of opportunity, but should that change and people really need the job, we may see the company have the upper hand. I think it kind of ebbs and flows, but I do think the flexibility piece is going to have to be here to stay in some capacity.
So interesting. And then for your courses that you have on LinkedIn, you're one of their top course creators. I mean, you've had great success doing that. What was the spark that you had, the idea when you said, hey, I should have a course and maybe it should be online? And then what drew you to LinkedIn as your course host?
Yeah, I feel like, Flavia, I might have gotten a little bit lucky there. So when I started my company 8 years ago, I started it with a need I saw in companies to train individual contributors around how to navigate their career more authentically. There's just a need. So I created a course where my company was going into companies and training their employees, and that was working really well. And then I got approached by LinkedIn, someone I knew there, that said, hey, we are, we're seeing an uptick in personal development. And so we want to add more of that to LinkedIn Learning. Would you audition for that? So I feel like that opportunity came about because I already had the idea. And I was already showing LinkedIn that I had real clients and that there were employees already interested in these topics that were around, job navigation and self-fulfillment, self-leadership. So I was really lucky in a way that LinkedIn agreed with that need and thought that I could be a good partner with them to do that. And it's been 4 years since my first course, and their platform just keeps growing.
And then the book, was that in conjunction with the courses, or did that come later, or was that actually the precursor?
It's a funny answer to that. So the first thing I thought when I was working inside corporations, I had the fantasy, that I want to be on my own, and I think I should write a book and do all these things. But everyone told me write the book first, and I tried. I was trying to get it done while I was working full time, and I never could finish it. And as I was writing the book, I jumped to, oh gosh, who's going to really read this book? I think I should just train them how to do these things first. So I built the training. So I did it a little bit more backwards, I think, than a lot of people in my field. And then after I had a successful course for a while, and then I started working with LinkedIn, then I actually finished the book. So it kind of started 8 years ago, and I just finished it last year. So it was a little bit backwards.
Well, congratulations. It's always great to launch a book and to have that out there with your name on it. And not only do books give professionals credibility in their topic and their niche, but also, I mean, I was an English major in college. I love writing. I love reading. So for me, publishing and writing books, it's one of those things that when I was a little kid, I was like, I want to be an author someday. So it's a great accomplishment. And for anyone out there thinking of writing a book, there's no time like the present. I mean, get on it because life is finite. And if there's a book in you, let's get it out sooner rather than later so it can get out there and serve people and help people and also further your career. Christine, you teach courses and they're online. You wrote a book, but what do you do day to day or week to week now? Is it a lot of consulting? Do you teach live and in person? Tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
Yeah, so it really is different every week, but I do teach some live virtual online courses for clients. So I still work with businesses to execute. And then I'm doing a lot more like virtual keynote work and always creating what's next, improving the courseware, improving the content. But I get to spend, I'd say, about 80% of my time creating and facilitating, which was the fantasy that I had many years ago around what if I could just do that, all day? That would be cool. And that's pretty much what I do.
And so you made a decision and you visualized it. You said, what if I could do this? What if I could be in creation mode for 80% of my work life, right? You were thinking, how can I be more creative and spend less time on the things that are not in, my zone of genius or excellence, whatever you want to call it. How was it? How was that journey? How did you get from A to Z? Like, how did you make that shift so that you could focus on the creative and leave behind some of the things you were not as into?
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot. And every time I think back to how I did it, I think some people that I've known will say, oh, wow, you're so fortunate. You just made this easy transition. And it was definitely not easy. And I say it wasn't easy. When I actually made the transition, it was quite easy. But what wasn't was that I had been thinking about it for years. And sometimes I kicked myself for not doing it sooner, but I was just so nervous. Once you have a mortgage and you have these expenses, there's always the fear of what if I fail and how am I going to make money? So one thing that I did is I had a mentor for many years that I went to a couple people that I had really respected and said, here's what I'm thinking. And I spent a whole year thinking about what would have to be true for me to achieve this fantasy that I had. And one of the big factors is money, right? You're not going to make money in the first few months. So I had a financial goal about how much money I was going to put away, a little nest egg, so that I could fail. And I knew that if I could allow myself to fail for the first year, then there was really no reason why I wouldn't eventually be successful in it. So I did I put some money away. I spent a whole year in my corporate job. Every painful meeting that I had where, you just want to scream because you're working long days and there's annoying people in your meetings and they're just talking to hear themselves talk. Every time I was doing that, I kept thinking, but me working today is funding my next stage of life. Every bonus, every painful thing I did, I just kept thinking this is funding my next thing. And I think by having that 1 year plan, it made the final transition quite simple. I left, I had my website ready. I had my first client lined up. So I didn't just take the leap and hope it would working out. I worked really hard to do that 1 year transition.
I love it. It's like strategic risk. There's a lot of people this is a pretty common analogy, but they jump off the cliff and then worry about the parachute on the way down. But I'm more risk averse. So I'm like you, I'm a planner, and I love that you were strategic about it. And you said, this is how much I need to have saved up as a buffer, as kind of like contingency plan so that I can support myself while I build this business, and that you gave yourself some timelines. That's fantastic. And I think there's people listening today that will probably take that to heart, because the hesitation for a lot of people in starting a business is, how do I give up the security of the job I have now, even if it's a job I hate that is tearing my soul apart, to jump ship into the unknown, right? Into the abyss and hope it works out for the best. But you were really strategic about it. And I think that is the way to go, is to put aside money and learn to live on less. And that will come in handy later too, if it takes a while for the business to take off. If you've already reduced expenses during the sort of runway time before you take off, it's going to be great. And isn't it true that if someone takes the leap, leaves a job, starts a business, it's not like they can't come back into the corporate workforce if they really need to, or they decide that the grass really wasn't greener, right?
Oh, that's so important. It's interesting. I remember telling my mom, and my mom is from a different generation. She was a stay-at-home mom, and I would go to her and I would actually get the best business advice ever. And I used to go to her with all my fears and what if this and what if that? And she said, well, why can't you just go get another job? If this fails, can you just not get another job? And I said, well, I guess I could, right? I'm not going to blow up where I'm working now. So I think there's some pressure we put on ourselves that once I leave, we have to save face, you can't go back. And that's just not true at all. I know several people who have gone out on their own. They just learned they didn't like it. Either they couldn't make the money they thought, or they didn't like working alone. And they just went back and got another job. It's like no harm, no foul. Right. And I think sometimes we think too permanently about things and we don't realize that we will learn. It'll be a learning experience and you may change your goals after that.
Yeah. And some people want to be their own boss. And then when they become their own boss, they realize they don't really like themselves as a boss.
Right.
Or maybe they don't like themselves as their own employee. And so maybe being their own boss, wasn't the answer. And what they really needed was to find a different job. So sometimes it's not that you have to start a business. I know we focus on solopreneurship and building businesses here on the podcast, but a lot of times you can find a job that lets you be creative and entrepreneurial in the way that you need to express yourself, while still having that team sort of environment and working at either a company or on a small team somewhere, or even just in partnership with a few folks. So, really, the world is limitless. There's so much out there. And for every one of us, we can find exactly the path that we should be on.
I agree. And in fact, I just taught a course this morning for a group. And it reminded me, I think the piece that so many of us are missing, because we don't get this kind of learning earlier in our career. And I'm on a mission to stop that. We rarely stop and truly think about in very, very specific terms who we are. Who am I when no one's looking? And what are my personal values right now? What is most important to me? And so often I find that people are making decisions based on someone else's talents and values. Right? What we see on social media, what our friends are doing, what our family has imposed on us. And I think that creates career paths that don't fulfill people. They're making decisions. And I always advise people, you've got to get really clear on what truly motivates you. Is it money? If it is, then know that about yourself and know that you should focus on that, and you're going to have to make some other trade-offs. Or is it you love helping people, you love a lot of free time? If that's who you are, then what are you willing to sacrifice or trade off to get that? And therefore, when we are making a decision and we have conflicting values that come into play, we can consciously make a decision that says, I'm going to do A because of what I'm going to get from that. And I'm going to consciously trade off B on my own terms. I'll just know I'm going to have a pain point here, but it's because I'm gaining something from that. And I think so often we can fall victim to our own choices and feel like everything's happening to us. So I really advise people to get very clear. And this is what my whole book was about, is get clear on who you are and what you want and make decisions based on that. And then no matter where you end up, it'll be authentic and it won't feel so bad.
Excellent advice, truly. And then you're a very productive, efficient person. You have to be doing the things you're working on and doing. What are some of your favorite techniques or maybe software or tips on staying balanced, and how do you keep your work life from being the schedule and the workflow that makes sense for you?
I have for the last 8 years experimented because one of my talents is not organization, and details are a problem for me. I love to create. I love to talk to people, and it's so easy at the end of the day to say, what did I decide, or what am I supposed to do? So one of the things I've purchased is a Remarkable. It's like a digital notebook, and I cannot believe it's changed my life. So I absolutely love this product. If you're someone who takes a lot of notes that you can't read later, or you go notebook to notebook and can't remember which notebook you're writing in, a lot of creative people do that. Remarkable is a cool tool for that. I also use Asana, and that is a way that if I'm collaborating with other people, I set up a project. And every time we agree to something, we type it in there in the moment with a due date and who owns it. And therefore, there's no wondering after who is supposed to do what. And I will tell you, Flavia, more often than not, it's really to keep me accountable, because I will forget what things I agreed to and what details I didn't, I have to execute on.
Those are great tips. And what's funny is I have been eyeing the Remarkable 2. There's, I guess, 2 versions now. And the Remarkable looks like a really great e-tablet. But it's funny when I read all the comments on the ads they keep sending me, there's people who love it, like evangelical, like absolutely love the Remarkable. And then there's people that are like, why would I buy a thing that does like 10% of what an iPad does and doesn't connect with any of my apps? And it's only in black and white and it doesn't have a backlight. So you need to be in a lit up room to use it. And, it's funny how there's like haters and absolute like fans that love it. So I've been kind of following that a little bit.
I just tell people I keep telling other friends of mine, if you're a person who has Post-it notes all over the place on your desk, you're that person, scribbly Post-it notes and lots of like spiral notebooks, then it's a good solution for you.
They should hire you to do some of their marketing. Right? Because if they called it like, if you have more than 20 Post-it notes on surfaces in your home, you need our tool. Like that would be really persuasive.
I know. Someone kept telling me to look at it and I said, why would I want a digital notebook? That seems ridiculous, but it really has changed the way that I work.
Well, I love it. So those are two great resources for people. And then for anyone that wants to connect with you, either to get a copy of your book or take one of your courses, what is the best place to send them? Where should we go to connect with you more?
Gosh, I am everywhere. I would say it's wherever the listener is. LinkedIn is a great way. Email is simply Christine@careerrev.com. Instagram, really any way that they want to connect, I do respond.
Well, I hope everyone takes that opportunity at the very least to read your book, because like you said, the first step really is knowing who we are. And sometimes it's not just who we actually are. A lot of people need to differentiate between knowing who they want to be and knowing who they actually are now in the moment.
Yes.
I see that too. It just even in social media, it's okay to be aspirational. I see people posting things of the person they want to be, right? And then by showing that outwardly and by posting, a picture of them drinking a green smoothie, if they're not someone who actually eats healthy, but then they have that, it's aspirational and that's great too, but you have to know the difference of where you are and where you're trying to go so that you know how to get there and you can navigate that better. Absolutely. So I love that you're encourage being introspective.
Yes, absolutely. It all comes down when I say who we really are. I'm really tapping into those innate drives that we have. And then I say the second layer of that is anyone can set a goal, right? You can become anything you want and achieve whatever you want. Or the easiest path there is to leverage your natural strengths and talents. So if two people want to be the CEO of a certain company, both can get there, but how they get there will be different. And the easiest way there is to get there through what comes naturally to you. And that's what I want people to do instead of try to take someone else's path. And then the whole time they feel defeated because it's not going to be a fun journey.
Excellent advice. Everyone, it has been so amazing to talk to Christine today. Make sure you pick up a copy of Get There Faster, her book, because I know there will be nuggets in there that will be so helpful to everyone who reads it. And you can also find her at her website, which is careerrev.com. That's careerrev.com. Christine, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Guess what, lifestyle solopreneurs? If you don't yet have an online business earning you enough passive income to live the life of your dreams, I'd like to suggest you consider trying out Kajabi. Kajabi is an all-in-one solution where you can create and teach online courses, publish a paid newsletter, launch a free or paid podcast, process payments, build one-on-one coaching portals for your clients, and much, much more. I personally use Kajabi to power numerous successful and profitable online businesses. Lifestyle solopreneurs, there's a free trial of Kajabi waiting for you at this link, www.kfreetrial.com. You can try Kajabi for free, no obligation, by going to www.kfreetrial.com. Again, kfreetrial.com, and that K stands for Kajabi. Starting an online business helped me break free from that corporate grind, and I hope it does the same for you. You have nothing to lose and absolutely everything to gain. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, and see you next time.